Welcome to Becoming a Sleep Consultant. I'm your host, Jane Havens, a certified sleep consultant and founder of both Snooze Fest by Jane Havens and Center for Pediatric Sleep Management. On this podcast, I'll be discussing the business side of sleep consulting. You'll have an insider's view on launching, growing, and even scaling a sleep consulting business. This is not a podcast about sleep training. This is a podcast about business building and entrepreneurship. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Becoming a Sleep Consultant podcast. Today, I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Kerri Nachlas. Kerri is the founder of the Parent Coach Certification course, and she's someone I admire deeply for the thoughtful, ethical way she approaches her work as both a parent coach and sleep consultant. Today, we're diving into a timely and important conversation about artificial intelligence, or AI, and how it's showing up in the world of sleep consulting and parent coaching. With so many new tools at our fingertips, it can be tempting to let AI do a lot of the heavy lifting in our businesses. But when it comes to communication, coaching, and client relationships, there's a real risk of losing the human touch that makes our work so effective. In this episode, we're breaking down where AI can be helpful in streamlining or supporting your workflow, why overusing it can actually hold you back as a coach or consultant, and whether sleep consulting and parent coaching are truly AI-proof field. So Kerri, let's get into it. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here.
So let's just jump right in. Where have you personally seen AI bring real value in a coaching business, whether it be yours or someone else's?
So I use AI to give me the information I want to share. So for example, I send out text messages throughout the year to remind my clients that I'm thinking about them, that I am invested in what season we're in and what they're going through during that season as parents and as it relates to what we worked on as client and coach. So throughout the year, I'll send out text messages. For example, I'll send out stuff around spring break, about traveling. I'll send out things around 4th of July about decibel levels of the sound machine and ear protection to help with, the big booms of the fireworks, things like that. So when I do that, I am a little bit wordy. And so I send it through AI and I give AI all of the information I want to share with my clients. And then I say, can you take this information, turn it into 2 or 3 sentences that I can text out, but don't lose the message.
One way that I'm using AI is if I'm sending an email to, maybe it's somebody who I want to network with or somebody I want to connect with. I will write an email myself. I'll literally open up my email, my email screen, and I'll write it. And then I'll copy and paste it into ChatGPT or whatever AI platform I'm using and say, hey, can you clean this up for me a little bit? And just polish it. And it spits it back out just a little bit better than what I would have done on my own. So
Right.
it's always my original words. It's always my original message and all of my thoughts, but it cleans up punctuation. It makes the language flow a little bit more seamlessly. I would say that that's my favorite way to use it. One thing that I was also thinking about, I haven't done this myself, but I'm thinking about brand new sleep consultants who maybe are just getting started. I would think that AI would be a great platform to just ask, who should I be reaching out to? I'm a brand new sleep consultant in Baltimore, Maryland. I want to network professionally with others who are in adjacent fields also supporting families. Can you give me some suggestions for who I might reach out to? And I bet it would spit out a really great list. I've never done it, but I bet that would work really well.
I think it would. And one of the other ways that I think it's great for new sleep consultants as they're building their business, because they're always, at the beginning, we're working on a budget. We're working on a budget that sometimes doesn't exist. And so they're doing their own websites, they're doing their own flyers. And I think AI is a fantastic way to get your message across, putting in what you need and want out of it, and then using that for your website verbiage or your flyer verbiage. But it has to come from you first, so it has your voice to it.
What would you say are the biggest dangers of relying on AI too heavily, especially when you're just getting started learning how to coach families?
Okay, so I feel pretty passionately about this because I know that when I started out, I had a coaching voice that I needed to grow and grow into. And I also had to learn how to use the verbiage in an effective way so that I wasn't creating triggers for my clients. I wasn't creating like sometimes your message gets lost in the tone or the context, and I didn't want that to happen either. And so you have to grow your own coaching voice. And without your own coaching voice, you can't always have an AI in your back pocket. I know that I laugh because when I say that, I think about when I was growing up, they said you won't always have a calculator in your back pocket, so you have to learn math. Well, we literally have a calculator in our back pocket now. However, AI is different because when you're talking like we are right now, I cannot rely on AI to answer these questions for me or to put it in a voice or a tone for me. So they have to have their own way of thinking and doing and putting words together so that it's effective, it's filled with heart and compassion, and it has the information in it that they need. And that's really hard to do on the fly if AI has been the only person that's done that for you up until that point. So that's my biggest reason why. But I also feel like it takes away the creativity that you would put into your business. Because if AI does it for you and they do it well enough, or they do it actually maybe even better than you could or would, you stop thinking about it and you stop thinking, how can I do it differently or better? How can I add more of me to it? Because you feel like, well, they did it pretty great, so I'll just leave it at that. And I do feel like we lose a lot of our coaching voice when we rely on AI in the beginning.
Yeah. I also think we lose our confidence when we
Oh,
rely
huge.
on AI, right? You know, if we are using AI to write our sleep plans, for example, and AI is writing these beautiful sleep plans, and then
Right.
we go and get on a phone call to talk about what some other computer program wrote that we didn't write ourselves, it's
Mhm.
really hard to speak into that process if it's not your process,
Right.
right? This isn't really AI related, but I always like to bring up the example of when you taught me how to be a parent coach.
Yeah.
And you had all of this verbiage that you use regularly in your business, and you would share it with me. And I would try and talk about it the way that you were talking about it.
I
And it
remember that.
just, it didn't feel like my own. And I
Right.
felt really uncomfortable using it. And you were giving me full permission to use it. You were like, it's okay. I'm sharing it with you. What's mine is yours.
Right.
And so it's not that I was stealing your verbiage. I had your full permission to use it. But actually, I wasn't comfortable coaching families in that capacity until I adopted my own coaching verbiage and my own language,
Your voice.
my own voice. And it
Yeah.
took me, I think you and I spoke about parent coaching for years, probably like 2 years or more,
Right.
until I really got to the point where I felt like I had my own voice, my own language, my own verbiage. And I think that when you rely heavily on AI or somebody else's voice, whether it's a human voice or artificial intelligence, you're not adopting your own. And I think that keeps you stuck.
I agree. And I also think that in this situation, in the context of this conversation, voice equals confidence because you also were finding the confidence in using those words and those methods and making a quick pivot in your own mind and in your own heart when you're talking to a client and taking the outside variables and turning it into something that you need to then spit back out an answer for. And it doesn't come easily if you haven't practiced and if you're not continually getting better at it and using your verbiage. I mean, like you said, if you don't practice your verbiage and learn more and how to put it in context, it you really have no communication style. And parents are like, I mean, there's awkward pauses in the conversation and it's like, oh my gosh, I need AI right now. And it's not going to be there. And that's why it's really important that you share your heart using your own verbiage, using your own confidence.
So, where's the healthy balance? Because AI is not going away, I don't think. I kind of would love for it to, but it's not. It's here to stay, I think. So, where's the healthy balance? Where should we be leaning in and where should we be leaning out?
So the healthy balance is, I think, similar to everything. I think it's no different than what we choose to eat, what we choose to do with our free time, whether we're scrolling on our phones or reading something that's going to add value to our lives. I think that's the same thing. I think that the healthy balance is what can you do? How can you use it where it doesn't take away from who you are or your own way of doing things? So I feel like the most important thing is making sure that you write, like you said, write the email. Make the email sound like you, put all of your wonderful self into it, and then plug it into AI and say, could we make this any better? And sometimes they do, and sometimes it's like, well, that was pretty much the same. And it's okay either way. But I really feel like that's where the healthy balance comes. If you don't exercise, you lose your muscles. If you don't use your creativity, all of a sudden you can't think like that. If you don't use your own business brain, all of a sudden you're like, I can't even think myself out of a box right now when it comes to business because AI's done it for me for so long. I don't want to be that person. And so I always want to make sure that my creativity, plus I'm old and I'm losing those things anyway. So I don't want to lose those to AI. So I make sure my creativity, I make sure my knowledge, everything is in place first, and then let AI hone in on it if you want to. But really, it has to be you first. I
Yeah.
think that's the healthy balance.
I think that's exactly right. This morning I was scrolling Facebook as I
Yeah.
do, and I saw somebody comment that ChatGPT sleep trained her baby. And, she doesn't need a sleep consultant because ChatGPT told her what to do. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think our business is AI proof?
Absolutely, because good for her. I love that she had a baby and the variables that were associated with her baby's sleep were those that AI could address and that she was coachable without needing somebody to maybe address her postpartum anxiety or her fears or guide her in a different direction or offer pivots. But those are the things AI can't do. And I work with enough clients now that I know that there's no way AI could do what I do because my my knowledge comes in first and foremost. AI does not watch videos. AI cannot make an immediate pivot when something's not going the way it's supposed to. And the mom's like, I'm so finished. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make this work. And AI is not going to talk her through. I don't see how AI can ever do that.
Yeah, I agree. To me, AI, asking ChatGPT how to sleep train your baby is no different than taking a book out of the library or asking a friend. And those are all legitimate ways to solve a problem,
And
right?
they will work for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I don't think that that's our client base, right? Like the person who can solve their problem by asking ChatGPT how to sleep train their baby is not the person who is paying for our help, right? The person who's paying for our help requires emotional support, accountability. They really want us to take a look at the child's communication, their body language, their sleep environment,
Right.
all things that AI is not taking into account. I noticed the other day, I was watching the monitor of a little baby, and the monitor said 82 degrees. And I'm like, is her room really 82 degrees? And the parents were like, well, it's probably not 82, but it is warm because that room just doesn't get good ventilation. And she
Mhm.
was in long sleeve PJs and she was in a sleep sack and, she was hot, right?
Right, right,
AI is not going to take a look at the monitor and say, oh, I've noticed that your monitor says it's 82 degrees and your baby is wearing a sleep sack and
right.
sleeve pajamas, right? So we really, I do think, are providing a level of service, accountability, support, emotional support that AI or a book or even a friend is not necessarily going to be able to put in place for them.
I absolutely agree. And I really feel like parents don't know what they don't know. So they think that chat can do this for them and maybe it can. We both know people who have sleep trained with a book or sleep trained obviously with chat GPT. But when it comes right down to it, the number of people that can't do that, I think is far higher than the people who do that successfully.
I was going to ask you if you can think of an example of a time where like your gut caught something that AI never could have predicted. And I want you to answer what I'm thinking of. I want you to tell the story about Llama Llama if you're willing
Oh
to.
my gosh. Okay, yeah, I can totally do that. So I'm working with this 2-year-old and we're working. And I have a pretty cut and dried system for 2-year-olds and it works in about 3 or 4 days and we are golden. And this little guy just wasn't getting it. And he kept saying, I'm crying for mama. And I was like, why is he saying that? And she's like, I have no idea. And I said, but he's acting like it's something he has to do. Like it was his job to go to bed and cry for mama. And so we're talking, and I said, I said, do you guys read Llama Llama Red Pajama? And she's like, because that's what it sounded like. I'm crying for mama. And she's like, we do. And I was like, we read it every night. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think he thinks he has to cry for mama because that's what Llama does when he's put to bed. And she's like, oh my gosh, we read that every night. It's his favorite book. I said, let's stop reading it and let's show him that he doesn't have to cry for mama. 2 nights later, this kid is like doing great. He's settled. He's not stressed. And honestly, AI would not have caught that. There's
I
no
would never catch that.
Never, never. And I know that you have caught ear infections like crazy. And
Yes.
it's like AI will never catch ear infections. They just won't. So
Yeah.
there's always going to be a place for us.
Let's talk through a situation, let's say a toddler nap strike.
Mm.
Why is a scenario like a toddler nap strike too dynamic for AI to manage effectively?
I think it goes back to the same thing. There are too many variables. Toddlers throw us for a loop every day. And we have to really kind of step back and think in the big picture. And AI does not step back and look at the big picture. We don't look at, what was their wake window like before this nap? Were they sitting in front of a TV because mom had meetings? Or were they, not feeling great or energetic? Maybe it's 105 where they are. So it was an indoor play day for the most part, and it was very low key. And so their energy wasn't quite expended. AI is not going to catch that. If they skipped snack at preschool and then they came home and they didn't want lunch and the mom doesn't know that they're going down for a nap with literally like half of their breakfast this morning. And it's like things like that that I don't think AI is going to follow through on. That's the type of support people hire us for, is to help them with all of the variables, all of the different things that might be happening in the house. I
Yeah.
had one little guy who the only variable for him taking a nap was his mom had changed laundry detergents and he kept throwing his lovey out of the bed. And she's like, I don't know why he's throwing this lovey out of the bed. And so then he found another lovey that he liked. And then later that day, she asked him, she's like, here's your bear. And he's like, no bear, stinky. And it's like she had to come up with that. She came up with it on her own. She's like, I think he's telling me that because I did wash his bear yesterday while he was at my mom's house and I use a new detergent now. And he thought it was stinky. It's like AI is not going to tell them that. So things like that I think are important.
I think that's amazing. That's
Mhm.
amazing, actually, that the mom caught that in that
He
scenario.
did because he kept saying it was stinky and he would smell it. And she smelled it and she's like, it's not stinky. And then she realized it was the new detergent. And so, I mean, these little people are creatures of habit.
If there's one thing that you want coaches or consultants to take away from our conversation today, what would it be?
I really want to encourage coaches and consultants, regardless of where you are in your business, to really tap into your authentic self before you tap into AI, because people are not paying you for AI and they truly are paying you for your personality. They're paying you for your knowledge base. They're paying you for your ability to help them pivot, to offload some of the stress. People hire us because they are overwhelmed with the comparison, the information overload, and the judgment online. They're like, I don't even know where to start. There's so much information out there. I don't know how to drill it all down. I don't know what's going to work best for us. That's why they hire us. So be that person. Show up authentically. I think that's the most important part. And if AI can help you, but not do it for you, I think that's the key. I really feel like people need to realize that AI has a place in your business, but it's a very small piece of your business. And it certainly is not where you're going to find your voice.
There's that saying, I don't know what the quote is exactly, but nothing ever grows in your comfort zone or
Yeah.
something like that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's so important for business people to look, you cannot be successful in business or entrepreneurship if you're not pushing yourself.
Exactly.
And when we stop challenging ourselves and we start leaning heavily on AI and other convenient resources, I think we lose, as you said in the beginning of this conversation, you lose the muscle.
Right.
And we have to show up with strength and with confidence ourselves first
Right.
before we lean on any sort of technology to support us in our business. We cannot grow as coaches and consultants if we don't have the foundation to communicate effectively, to
Right.
show up confidently. If we don't have the expertise, AI is not going to do a good job covering for us. It's just going to look like AI covered for us. I really do believe that.
I agree with you. And I also feel like, if somebody texts you a challenge or a question, yes, you could hop over to AI and get that answer and get back to them, and you would still look professional and sound great. But honestly, that's not the majority of your business. That's not the majority of how you're going to show up. So relying on that is, first of all, time consuming. But secondly, it's not your authentic self. It's not your voice. And it's not always going to be available in that capacity. Because if you presented a challenge or needed a pivot right now, would I have to go look it up on AI because I have not exercised my own verbiage and my own coaching voice enough? That's not how I want to show up in my business. And maybe it's because I grew my business before AI became a thing. I don't know, but I just know now that it's not the way you want to do it. It's
I
just
also would worry, if somebody texted me a question and I asked the question to AI and then I texted them the response, I would be worried that they would also ask AI and they get the
right.
same response. It's sort of like cheating in high school and getting caught, right? I would be worried about that.
Well, and I think that's a valid point because I feel like that can happen. I think that when we give them AI answers, who's to say? I mean, people are AI savvy, not just us. This is across the board. People are AI savvy. And if they put into their own AI, give me a sleep plan, including methods, blah, 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 for a 3-year-old, and they get out a plan, but then they're like, well, I don't know if I can really do this. Maybe I do need some support. And then they ask you, and you give them almost the identical same sleep plan, how how ridiculous is that? How embarrassing. And what a slap to our profession. It's just not the way you want to show up in your business.
Yeah, let's be better than that, right?
Absolutely.
If that's
Absolutely.
if that's our message to listeners today, let's be better than that, right? We are all smarter, we are hardworking, we
Yes.
are intuitive, we we can do better
We can
than
do better.
leaning on AI to do the work for us. Let's
Absolutely.
do better. Let's use our brains. Let's show up with integrity and authenticity and our own creative ideas.
Mhm.
Oh, I should tell the story about the song that we wrote for my niece about
Yeah,
throwing her passy.
that was amazing.
Before we wrap up, I want to share one more idea for using AI effectively. And I think this is a great way to use AI.
Totally.
My niece, who's 15 months old, was throwing her pacifiers out of her crib. And she was doing that because she wanted my brother or sister-in-law to come in and give them back. It had become a game. And they said to me, what do we do? Do we just have to take away the passies? And I was like, well, you can take away the passies, but also she's 15 months old and she understands a lot. And if you don't feel like now's the right time to take away the passies, I actually would just communicate with her to stop throwing them. And
Right.
they looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, no, 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 15-month-olds, they have really strong receptive language abilities. They understand. And I gave them the idea. This was on the fly.
Right.
I was like, type into ChatGPT, please write me a song about not throwing your pacifiers and holding them tight in your crib to the tune of row, row, row your boat. And literally a minute later, my sister-in-law Jess texts me with a screenshot of this song, and they started singing it to her, and she stopped throwing her pacifiers, right? So the idea was mine to sing her a song about not throwing her
Love it.
pacifiers, but I didn't want to take the time to actually write the song. That didn't feel necessary, right?
Right. Right.
So it was my idea to communicate with her in this way, but I used ChatGPT to make it more streamlined and more effective for the 15
I
month
think
old.
that's the way you do it.
And
That's
that's the way you
perfect.
do it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the way
the
you
way
do
you
it,
do it.
right? And I shared this in our community of sleep consultants,
Mhm.
and everybody was like, that's such a great idea. Well, like it wasn't ChatGPT's idea, it was my idea.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what makes my business special. And that's what makes me valuable to my clients is that I can come up with these
Right.
ideas. And then I can have ChatGPT help me execute them. And I think that's really like the secret sauce to all of this is that
Mhm.
you don't want to give up on your own creativity and your own ideas. Let AI help you refine those ideas and put them into place more seamlessly.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that. And somebody in the group was talking about having ChatGPT write a book for their clients. And that was fantastic. And she emails it to them and then they print it out. And it's a book about a healthy bedtime.
And it has details. So they're prompting ChatGPT with specific
Right. She loads
circumstances.
in, I'm 100% sure it was Lauren Kaub, but she loads in like their name and their age and some of the variables of the challenges that they're having. And then ChatGPT gives her this fantastic book.
Like a social story.
Exactly. And it's been so well received by her clients. It's such added value and it's another tool for success. So it's a win-win for everybody. So the songs, the stories, that's the way ChatGPT shows up in your business and makes you look better. But they're not, but ChatGPT is not you. And so I love what you said about I didn't have time, I didn't have the desire to write that song, but ChatGPT can do that for you. And
Yeah,
I
I didn't need to write the song,
came up with the idea.
like it was my idea to
Right.
communicate with my 15-month-old niece in an
I love it.
age-appropriate way,
Yep.
right?
I
And
love
that's
it.
what Lauren's doing with the social stories written by
Mhm.
ChatGPT. She knows how valuable that a social story would be for her little 3-year-old, 4-year-old clients, but she doesn't need to actually write the story in order
Right.
for that to be effective.
But she does have to use her knowledge, her expectation of bedtime to load into ChatGPT to get the right story out. So that's where you want to use ChatGPT.
Yeah, love that.
I
All right,
love it.
let's wrap up there. I
Okay,
think this was super valuable and it's ever evolving, right? This is an emerging technology. We don't even know what it's going to look like 6 months or 6 years down the road. So we might have to do a part two at some point.
absolutely, because it is definitely ever evolving and it's technology is on a turbo train. I mean, it's incredible.
And you and I are on the caboose in the back.
We are.
Thanks as always, Kerri.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Becoming a Sleep Consultant podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much to me if you would rate, review, and subscribe. When you rate, review, and subscribe, this helps the podcast reach a greater audience. I am so grateful for your support. If you would like to learn more about how you can become a certified sleep consultant, head over to my Facebook group, Becoming a Sleep Consultant, or to my website, thecpsm.com. Thanks so much, and I hope you will tune in for the next episode.